What's up? It's Jobringus. It's currently the evening of February 4th, 2022, and I am training a little bit of cooking quite inefficiently. Cooking swordfish rather than making wines, not using any alts to, drop bones for me, nothing like that. Just cooking some fish because it's relaxing and easy. It's usually something I do when I'm very AFK and rather than actually, on my computer paying attention, but I do have some fish in my bank that I wanted to finish up, and so I'm going to be cooking them through the course of this video. Anyway, this is the first progress video I have for this account, and maybe it's something I'll do every month if I find it fun and interesting. These are my stats right here. I'm a free-to-play regular account, 1114 total level, 23 million total XP, and about 24 days of in-game time played. I actually made this account probably about 10 months ago, somewhere around the release of Ice Mountain, or a little after the release of Ice Mountain. So whenever that was, that's pretty much how old this account is. But there have been stretches of even multiple months where I haven't played it at all. Probably the majority of my playtime has been in a very AFK way, like on my phone while I'm doing other things, or in the background while I'm doing other things. Um, Although probably most of my EHP has been earned when I've been paying attention. According to the free-to-play wiki, I have just over 250 EHP, although I think that might actually be a little bit lower because some of the rates are not up to date. In particular, I think the prayer rate needs to be updated. Anyways, a little bit about this account and my goals and my stats. It's an account I play for fun. Like I said, there have been stretches where I haven't played it at all because I was just doing other things. And also, even though I'm a reg, and that means I have access to trading and I have access to Grand Exchange, I did that mostly because the Iron Man meta seemed a lot less interesting to me. There are some things that are cool about it, but then there are other things like I like being able to just buy a rune scimitar, and in particular, efficiently training an Iron Man largely means having to do certain things for very long stretches of time. Like, if you're serious about an Iron Man, it's like you don't really start your melees until you have your rune scimitar, and to get the rune scimitar, that's like basically 99 range at Ogresses, and then hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of mining and smithing iron. Um, Obviously, you don't have to do that. And in fact, if I were playing, I probably wouldn't, and I would probably also take lots of breaks to train like gathering skills for variety, but that's how it goes. And at least the Baronite Mace makes it a little better. But that's kind of an aside. That's my, shallow and pedantic take on Iron Man meta. Obviously, there's certain ways in which it's very fulfilling. Um, but also some of the XP rates are just very low, and even though I don't realistically think I will max this account, I still play as though I'm going to, and I think that would be very hard for me to do, if uh, my prayer XP rate were, 10k an hour at the boneyard, and my rune crafting XP rate were 5k an hour, crafting earth runes and chronicle teleporting. So, um, so as a result, I made this a reg account, but because I'm not using any alts to assist with activities or to fund it, and because I'm also not buying bonds with money to sell, um, that does kind of change my meta to be a little more Iron Man-esque. Um, It leads me to doing things like cooking fish rather than making wines. Cooking fish is really one of the most marginal ones. I think it's probably not efficient for me to cook fish with the other methods of money making I have, especially once I get to 99 smithing. Um, it's so long as you have like a 30 mil cash stack, that's enough to fund like an hour of runite bar smithing, and and you can make like 400K profit an hour off that. So definitely not efficient for me to be doing things like that. But on the other hand, you know, you need to have a pretty big cash stack to be able to make money off smithing, or kind of my other best money maker is making money off high alching. And you know, it's usually runite items that are worth high alching that you can get 300 or 400 GP per. If I slow buy and try and kind of lowball the prices, even like 5, 6, sometimes 700 GP. That's a lot of money per hour if I could alch for a full hour. The thing is, usually I only have enough items to alch for like 10 to 15 minutes, which is also not bad because that means I can do it while bank standing or something else. I don't usually alch while training other skills 0 time. I probably will at some point, especially if I have a bigger cash stack and get really serious about alching, or if I ever start alching items for, you know, a break even, a small loss, like high volume items, like you know, like gold amulets or something like that. Then, you know, I'll probably just bring a stack of fire runes with me while I train combats. But for the time being, most of my alching is done just while I'm bank standing, usually waiting for something at the Grand Exchange to buy or sell, or while I'm kind of thinking about what to do. And that's how I squeeze out a little bit of extra money here and there, which is very helpful because for as far as I can see, I'm probably going to need something like 200 mil to max this account. My current bank value, I'll show it on the next trip, but my current bank value is close to 40 mil, and that's if you count everything. That's if you count some items that I don't really intend to liquidate. So with items that I like could liquidate or would be willing to liquidate for sake of money, it's probably something more like 30, 35 mil. And there are some things I can do along the way that will earn me more money, like some of the horrendously inefficient methods I will use to train. But for me, the biggest general progression in this account is how am I going to fund prayer and what am I going to do about rune crafting? And the answer to those usually boils down to, well, high alchemy and smithing. And so I can't, it's as much as I would love to train base 70s. I was in fact going to go for base 70s. I decided to hold off with prayer and rune crafting. Rune crafting, well, prayer, because prayer right now is quite expensive. For most of the time that I played last year, big bones were like 100 to 120 GP, so about 7 to 8 GP per XP. And even fiendish ashes I could buy for a similar rate. Vile ashes were a little out of my price range, more like 20 GP per XP, which is frankly where they're still at. But right now, even like big bones are like 10 to 12 GP per XP. So a little more expensive than I'd like. You know, to get base 70s, I need about 400K prayer experience. So if I did that just by buying it, that would cost me like 4 mil. And I could do that. I have the money for it. But because of how important a big cash stack is for training smithing, I'd rather not do that. And so prayer kind of on the back burner because it's expensive right now. I might go and grind out 70. I mean, sometimes I gradually do it through combat if I fight some ogresses or anything like that. But that's kind of on the back burner. And Runecraft is on the back burner because shortly after I started training from 60 onwards, they announced the possibility of the Runecraft minigame. I knew that this was kind of in the works, but they revealed their official plan, and I didn't really expect the minigame to be free to play, although I thought there was maybe a tiny % chance it would be. But the ring is a pretty exciting possibility. Even though it could be an expensive item, it'll probably be one that decently holds its value and could really shake up the meta for how I runecraft. So, as I mentioned, I need money for runecraft and prayer. Or, well, I need money for prayer, and I need to figure out something to do about runecrafting. Body talismans have been prohibitively expensive as long as I can remember. I think the cheapest I saw them ever, body tiaras, were probably like 30 GP per XP. And most of the time I've been playing, it's been more like 40 to 70 GP per XP, which is something I simply can't afford. Um, there would be so much time that I'd have to sink into generating, making money, unless I seriously intended doing something like 200 mil smithing. It's not something I'm going to do unless I used alts to fund the account. And even if I were buying bonds to sell for the gold, that would be so much real money that I would frankly feel bad about it. So I'm not going to do that. And so the next alternative is really similar to the body tiara method, which is maybe this is a good time to show off my bank, which is the just crafting body runes rather than making tiaras, but you still do the Barbarian Village teleport, and you do the well, why am I lost for words? You do the Lumbridge teleport in a PvP world, and that basically is maybe like half the experience per hour as tiaras. It's about 180 XP per inventory, but your inventories are faster because you don't have to click on the altar over and over. But even so, that still costs something like 2 GP per XP with how much the teleports cost, which is kind of funny to think about. Body runes just simply aren't worth all that much. And am I missing something? I feel like I have one more item of value somewhere that I forgot. Anyways, this is kind of the majority of my bank. So as you can see, it's like 35 mil. There's more money somewhere. I have a little bit in the, oh, that's right. I need to alch these at some point. So that's another close to 3 mil. So that's about 30 mil. And I have maybe 500K in the Grand Exchange. So that's kind of my bank. And you can sort of see some of the supplies I have. And you can sort of cringe at some of the, oh, this is probably another mil. At some of the horrific methods that you can guess that I'm using based on some of the supplies I have banked. Anyways, it's a very tedious method to runecraft for like 25 to 30K experience per hour. Although it's not, it is kind of like fun. It's a pretty dynamic method, but it is relatively click intensive and quite slow to see progress. I think it is the slowest skill. Even combats are a little faster. So it's a very slow skill to see progress in, especially with how much attention it takes, because at 30K experience per hour, AFK can get flesh crawlers where I have to click, maybe once a minute just to check if there are any, scepter pieces on the ground. And then every 10 minutes I have to reset my aggro by moving to the next chunk. So runecrafting's on the back burner because if the poll does pass and the ring does become free to play, which I think is a reasonable chance of happening, then that could offer some pretty good alternatives to body runecrafting. First off, you may have seen that I bought up 50,000 air talismans, and I might even buy more. If I'm not using this cash anytime soon, which I'm not certain that I will, then I might buy more air talismans. And the reason being is that, firstly, if the poll passes, then it'll probably offer a pretty viable way to craft air tiaras for an experience rate that's probably something like 2/3 of body tiaras for your Barbarian Village, but closer to like 6 or 7 GP per XP. Way, way, way cheaper than body tiaras. Because the tiara is like 100 GP, maybe more like 8 8 to 9 GP per XP, especially once you factor in teleports, maybe 9 GP per XP. But sure, like a TR is like 100 GP, and then an air talisman's also around 100 GP, and you get to recoup a little bit by selling back the air tiara. So that could become a viable method of training. And whether or not I use it, we'd see. But I do think that if it became viable, air talismans, I don't think they'd be 100 GP anymore. I think if it became a viable method, then probably body talismans would fall a little bit in price, probably still stay expensive because they'd be the fastest, or presumably the fastest. But I do think that if air tiaras offered a competitive experience rate of like 35, 40k XP per hour, then I think a lot of players would consider it reasonable to train with them, and they might bid up the price to 200-300 GP per talisman. Maybe. I mean, they're a relatively common drop from some monsters in pay to play, but still, you could see a significant demand increase. Maybe. I think it's a good bet. Even if none of that happens, air talismans probably aren't liable to crash that much. And so again, it's either a method that I could potentially use to train, and if it becomes very popular, then I could just flip the talismans and use the money for prayer. And I do think that it'll probably be a reasonable method, like reasonably viable, to train just crafting elemental runes if this ring passes and is implemented. So I'm kind of holding off on rune crafting training. The biggest advantage is, even though, if the distance from the teleport to the altar were about the same as the barbarian teleport, then, you could have air runes be like 2/3 the experience rate, but actually offer a little bit of profit. Or you could have fire runes be almost the same experience rate. I don't think you can craft enough fire runes to profit. Maybe you can slightly profit, or at least you can break even, I think. But in particular, one of the most advantageous parts about that is that it actually takes a really long time to bank supplies for Barbarian Village teleporting, because you can only buy 100 bone fragments at a time. So even if I spend a lot of time AFKing flesh crawlers, I still accumulate these bone fragments slowly. And so I can only buy 100 of those per hour, so it takes me a long time to accumulate, no matter what my chosen method is. Or I said per hour, per 4 hours. And they're also more expensive than law runes. A lot of times they can trade low prices, but still, like 300 to 400 GP is kind of the norm. And whereas law runes are a bit under 200 GP, and you can buy like 10,000 of them per 4 hours. It might even be 11,000 or 12,000. It's a large number. And so if you wanted to maximally charge a ring and do, days worth of rune crafting, you could just instantly buy the runes for that. Whereas with bone fragments, I'd have to, prepare for days in advance, or make sure that I, train my combats a lot and pick up a ton of scepter pieces, just to be able to prepare for a long session of rune crafting if I hypothetically wanted to. So that's a pretty long explanation, I think, but that's my general rationale for not rune crafting for now, especially since it sounds like this minigame could be on the horizon, in relatively soon. I mean, it might still take like a few months, but at least I would get to find out if this ring's a serious possibility. And if it fails the poll, then I'll just go back to body rune crafting and do my thing. But if not, we'll see. Fire making, I'm kind of holding off. Probably the most efficient thing that I do on this account is I do fireberry when I trade fire making. So I do have some vile ashes right now, and I might do some fire scatter just because I kind of want to train fire making for variety here and there. I do hop between skills quite a bit, even though I'd be spending some of my cash. I would be putting some items to good use. I did bank 99 fire making with maple logs. I did the math. I think it's something like, if I value my time at 400K an hour, I think that's where U-Logs becomes more efficient than Maple Logs, which again, some of my highest end money makers can get me there. Like if I get 99 smithing and train with smith rune items for profit, then that can get me there. But that is still on the like definitely on the higher end of money makers that can afford. Cooking swordfish is really like probably inefficient. I think as long as I value my time at like 100K per hour and I'm willing to just grind out some moneymaker, then I think I should be making wines rather than cooking fish. But another one of the reasons I use methods like this is because they're very, very AFK. A lot of the time I play on this account, I'm, just doing something else. And so, like this for cooking, most of this crafting XP, most of this 2.7 mil crafting XP almost, was actually trained by smelting silver into tiaras, which sounds crazy, but requires so little clicking and so little of my attention. It's really something I can do on my phone when I'm doing anything else, like for example playing other games. Um, so even though that's like a terrible XP rate, and cutting sapphires is almost certainly more efficient, and I'm pretty sure I can afford like to cut emeralds as well. Um, I'm not doing that. Diamonds are definitely too expensive for me, and rubies are probably a little too expensive for me. Although if I had access to high level money makers, if I had a big cash stack for like smithing and high alking, then I might be able to justify like rubies if I were really trying to play efficiently. But again, it's not a bother to me to do some crafting in the background while I do something completely different. So that's kind of my ramble on horribly inefficient training methods for um, cooking and crafting. Smithing is a lot of the kind of normal process, a lot of miscellaneous XP that got me up until the level where I could make mithril plate bodies. Some I tried superheating while I was mining, which was pretty fun method, although I don't really want to spend that much money on nature runes before I kind of know that I have enough money for prayer. And a little bit was spent, I don't know, doing other things. Um, but then pretty much as soon as I got to mithril plate bodies, I made those, and I would go out of my way to make sure I got the bars for a reasonable price to spend something like 1 GP per XP. I can't technically make added plate bodies yet, but I can boost for it. I did bank some dwarven stouts in case I choose to do that, which I probably will. Right now, Addy bars are like 2000 GP, which, at this point, I might as well just keep going with Mithril. 0 GP per XP is something like 1950. I guess I should double check the math on what's 1 GP per XP with Addy, because it might still be like 1 GP per XP here, and obviously Addy would be faster. And then if bars are like 1900, then it's like 1 GP per XP profit with Addy plates, which pretty much is where bars sat a lot of like the summer and fall of last year. So I'm kind of holding out for that for now, but if bars don't go anywhere and I get bored of other skills, I probably will just pay up and start training smithing, paying 1 GP per XP. Again, I'd prefer not to because, getting to 99, that basically would cost like 9 mil from here, and I just don't want to get to 99, finally have access to a huge money maker, but then not actually have the cash stack to be able to reasonably do it. If I can't craft at least or smith at least like half an hour worth of rune items, then I start to get to a point where I'm spending a lot of time running to and from the Grand Exchange, and depending on the prices of rune bars, it's like I might not be able to um, depending how price sensitive I am, I might not be able to, try and secure a good price if I don't have a good cash stack. If I have a big cash stack, then I can leave a buy offer in overnight and, probably be filled some point by the next morning, that sort of thing. As far as gathering skills go, um, probably I think my goal for the month would be to get 80 wood cutting, 80 fishing, and 80 mining, which I think is going to take some time, but it's going to be achievable. Um, Mining, I tried doing some. I haven't tried many tick manipulation methods, but I do want to try a few because I finally got the Christmas event, so I have access to the snow globe. Mining, I tried the like 3.5 tick method with leather, and I have pretty poor like rhythm and coordination, so I found that to be very difficult, and I realized it's much less effort for me to just mine at the 4 iron spot in the mining guild. And in fact, I find it quite relaxing to do on mobile. I just enable tap to drop, and then I can do it, watch something, and enjoy. I get into a good rhythm and put in pretty little effort. With fishing, most of this experience has been pretty AFK, but I do want to give it a shot. Trying 3-tick fishing with the snow. Um, XP rate on that's pretty good. It looks like it's not terribly hard. I think it's like 3 point something ticking because there's like a one cycle's off somewhere, and you can improve it a little bit with doing like the leather thing, which we'll see if I learn that. Eerie fishing is also a really cool method, but I probably won't use it because I'm probably just going to keep training cooking the way I am, and it is like a little slower than just doing like 3-tick fishing to my knowledge. So we'll see if 3-tick is something that I, with my poor coordination, can do, then I'll probably try to do that a lot. And if not, then I'll just AFK it out. And then wood cutting, I'm not super sure what I'm going to try. I probably will try some kind of like snow wood cutting method. Um, I know that the best method's like the 2.66 tick with like it's like the double snow and the rat, which um, seems very click intensive. Seems like it would be hard for me to get used to, especially without really much experience in tick manipulation. So I probably won't do that, even though experience rate is really good. But there are some methods that seem quite reasonable. A lot of my time that I spend alking is like bank standing, but I know there is the one method with you can have like a farmer attack you, and you have to do something to interrupt your action. And like alking is a good thing to do. I don't remember if that's 3-tick or 3.5 tick, but it's still better than regular wood cutting, and the experience rate's pretty decent off that. So maybe that'll be something I'll try. We'll see. And again, with wood cutting or fishing, it's always easy to just AFK them anyway. It's probably easier for fishing than wood cutting. But that's kind of my goal for the month. I don't know how much more cooking I'll do. Probably not much because I'm still debating of whether I even bother with fish anymore or just switch to wines because it's so fast and so cheap. Um, and then a lot of my other time for range, I kind of train it like an Iron Man at Ogresses. It's some fun variety. And in general, a lot of combat, I'm kind of seeking variety. Most of these stats were trained at golems, which helped with the runecrafting XP for sure. Earned quite a few body cores along the way. Um, I originally thought that I would probably train most of my combats at golems, so I could bank a lot of runecrafting XP that way, which I think is not a terrible idea. But the two biggest problems with that are one, it's hard to super AFK that. I mean, any combat you don't have to pay a huge amount of attention, but golems require a little more clicking than some other mobs, and I kind of am the type of person who needs some variety, and I would find it really, really hard to just train golems forever. I mean, even getting to like base 60s on golems to me was like a tiring thing, and I wanted variety. So I think I went to 70 strength on golems, but like 60 to 70 attack, 60 to 70 defense. I did that by AFKing flesh crawlers, um, which, it's not the best XP rate, but it's a respectable XP rate and extremely, extremely AFK, like astoundingly AFK. Um, so a lot of times I like to do that while I'm playing other games, or if I'm doing something completely different, or just have it go on my phone, chores, that sort of thing. Um, and if I'm paying any attention, I can just check if there are scepter pieces and pick some up along the way, and that'll fund the supplies and maybe help down the line if that still has to be my method for rune crafting. Um, and I think that's basically all the skills. Probably in the future, if I make more of these videos, then they'll probably be less, you know, one clip, one rant, and maybe some clips of progress along the way, and less of a whole general game plan, but more of like what I've done and what I'm doing going forward. So I play this account as though I'm going to max it, even though I don't actually think I'm going to max it. Um, and we'll see how it goes. So, this has been like half an hour, which is a lot longer than I expected. Frankly, longer than I hoped for. But I guess I had a lot to say. So thanks to anyone who watched all the way. And, maybe I'll see you next month.